In this volatile environment where the rest of the world is in so much trouble that it's dramatically pushing down interest rates here in the United States as foreigners send their money here in order to keep it safe, what do we do with the regional banks? On the one hand, these stocks are as domestically oriented as they come. No Russian worries here, and I am worried about Russia. But on the other hand, this vicious decline in rates is often considered bad for business. Take BB&T, the well-run regional bank that's a major player in the Southeast. Bountiful dividend gives you 2.7% yield, not bad for a bank. Now, BB&T reported this morning delivering a 1-cent earnings miss off a 72-cent basis, slightly better than anticipated revenues, 4.9% loan growth that fell short of the 7% figure Wall Street was expecting. The stock got dinged slightly, yet fell 1.3%, but long-term BB&T has been a solid performer, giving you a 30% gain since we last spoke to the CEO 3 years ago. Let's take a closer look with Kelly King, the chairman and CEO of BB&T, a terrific bank, to find out more about the quarter and where his bank is headed. Mr. King, welcome back to Mad Money.
Thank you, Jim. Always glad to be with you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Guy, got to ask this point blank. Wells Fargo was saying, they were tweeting today, that they have been deluged with people who missed the first mortgage refinancing, who are coming to the banks now and saying, I got a second chance. Are you seeing that happen at your bank, sir?
Absolutely. In the last 2 or 3 days, our production volume has almost doubled. It's been incredible. After a period of time, I think we kind of all thought that all the refinancing was done, but this has been such a precipitous drop in the 10-year rate in the last 2 or 3 days, as you well know. People are coming out of the woodwork to refinance, and that's great for us.
Well, this is important because Fannie Mae was telling me when I was talking about this morning. So a person I deal with, Fannie Mae, said, Jim, don't forget, some housing values have gone up in the interim, and there's still a lot of 5 to 6% rates out there. So you're seeing that kind of activity.
Oh, absolutely. It's really interesting. A lot of people that could have refinanced all along just have not. A certain degree of complacency. For people that are really focusing on the financing every day, if it drops a quarter of a point, they kind of think about it, they should refinance. But for a lot of people, these types of decisions are much more passive. But I think what's happened is, we kind of passed a point of inflection. Rates came down, started going back up. They started hearing people talk about, well, you missed it, you missed it, you missed it. And so a group that was really not that interested all of a sudden became energized and said, well, if it comes back down, I'm not going to miss it again. And that's why you're seeing the resurgence of refinancing now.
I'm so glad you mentioned it. I am so tired of the gloom, frankly. I mean, sometimes when you get lower interest rates, it's actually good news for the consumer. And you are a consumer bank. You do a lot of commercial lending. But in the end, you need your areas to do better. And this is good news.
Oh, absolutely. We see this is good news for, the remaining folks, as we talked about, being able to refinance. It's really good for small, medium-sized micro businesses. They can get that additional lever to be able to make investments that they've been wanting to make. It is hard on our savers, and,
right.
We do get concerned about that. But every dog has his day, as they say, and, probably over the next couple of years, rates will be going back up. That'll be the time the savers will have their reward. But for right now, those folks that are borrowing, this is a really good time.
All right, I've always felt you've been a Southeast bank. You have made some brilliant moves moving into Texas. Are you seeing that loan growth that we're getting, provided that oil stays fairly high, at least, that there's a lot of activity?
Jim, Texas is a wonderful state. I've been down there a lot lately. I frankly love Texas. It's 26.5 million people. It's growing 1,000 people a day. It's got a really can-do business attitude. Energy is a really big part of it, but it's a very diversified economy, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of retail. We have been growing rapidly, as you indicated, through de novo branching, through a couple of acquisitions of Citibank branch divestitures. The receptivity for our bank down there has been fantastic, and our loan growth and our deposit growth have been really, really good, and we're beginning to grow fee income as well.
Well, this is a good story, but I got to ask you, at the end of your comments today on the call, you said something. You said, look, we got positive operating leverage, key strategic initiatives that you felt good, but you still said it's a tough environment from a long-term perspective. When will it get easier?
Well, I think, Jim, it will get easier when we get a renewed level of confidence in the business community. I know a lot of people are trying to look for esoteric, complex, economic reasons why the economy is not doing well. I do my own economic research, kind of like you do, but I do it by out in the marketplace, sitting around having lunches with business leaders all the time. So over the course of a year, I'll talk to 400 or 500 business leaders and ask them the question, are you investing? If not, why? And 95% of the time, really over the last 2 years, going right up until very recent, they would say, I'm only investing defensively. That is to say, the truck broke down, I have to do something. I'm not investing for aggressiveness. In other words, I'm not investing to create new cash flows because I'm concerned about taxation, regulation, all of the uncertainties coming out of Washington. Here's the good news. When we see more confidence coming out of Washington, I believe out of more positive-oriented leadership, not partisan politics here, this is across the board, but when they start leading positively, taking this country back to the great place it has been and it can be again, there is so much pent-up demand out there, Jim, you're going to see a resurgence of growth in this country like you haven't seen in a long time.
Well, let's leave it at that because you are 100% right, sir. And you've been a great steward of your bank, and I really appreciate you coming on Mad Money.
I'm always glad to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. That's Kelly King, Chairman and CEO of BB&T. He's a real banker making real money for shareholders. Mad Money's back after the break.